Are you listening?
Alright, cool. So this is part 3 of episode 4 of Healthy Masculinity. Still with Billy Davis, and we kind of just want to talk. But she's also raising a son, and she's already seen some things, and she's an adult, and she's also matured mentally and emotionally to a state where she has a really healthy opinion of and view on what is healthy masculine traits or what toxic masculinity can be. So I just wanted to ask her that question. I wanted to ask you, how would you define healthy masculinity, and then on the other hand, toxic masculinity?
I'm gonna reverse it. I only really think it's toxic when you force it. So
Thank you.
to tell a boy he doesn't cry simply because he's male is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
To tell him he can't like pink or have long hair or have purple hair simply because he has a penis is toxic. Anything you tell any person they can't be naturally simply because that's not your view of how they are is going to be toxic to them, no matter what it is, ever. As far as healthy, I don't know if it's healthy or what it is, but it's confidence. Any man who is confident that he's male, doesn't matter if he's a buff male or a skinny male, or if he works in an office or with wood or anything. If he just has to be confident in himself, I think is always super healthy and attractive, honestly.
That was my question.
I back in the day when a long time ago I used to bartend. You can see traits quite easy. You see that girl walk in, and that one dude that always pops up and he wants to talk to her first, and he's gonna buy her the first drink, and in the first 5 minutes she's gotten to know him. She knows how much money he has in the bank, and she knows what type of car he drives, and that he owns his house. That man has nothing to offer her. He has literally given her everything he finds valuable in himself in the first 3 minutes. He's a shit man.
Maintain the mystery, fellas.
But guys, I've watched guys not hit on women, or they're just sitting there, and because conversation happens, they just start talking, and they never once do anything to what would say hit on her. And before it's over, like the women are like melted, like that's who she wants. She doesn't want the man that wants to prove that he wants her. He wants the man that is himself and is comfortable in himself. If it's long or short hair, painted fingernails, pink walls, whatever. There's always going to be someone who likes it, as long as it's you.
Right.
Yeah, so transparency, those are definitely two things.
So you would say that the definition of beta male doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have masculinity in you.
No, I wouldn't say that at all.
You would say that so.
That's good.
So masculinity in your point is something that any male can have, regardless if he has even a what was for the lack of a better word, a feminine type aspect to him.
Like a metrosexual type.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Like the confidence that he has in himself to dress how he dresses or be how he is even a form of masculinity.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It might even be a stronger form of masculinity. Not all alpha males have issues, but a lot of them are usually just covering from something that they find lacking in themselves. You can be dominant without being dominating.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a leader without having to push other people down. Actually, best leaders around usually bring the ones up around them. They want the people around them to be equal to them or better than them. Those are leaders. You don't have to be domineering just to be alpha.
Right.
And there's a big difference. Those guys that come in and they have to be like, listen to me, I could probably kick their asses. I ain't got nothing behind that.
This is all really
Some
funny,
bark.
but it's going to lead for a short podcast because you know, I was hoping she would just say something I could actually debate with her about. She's pretty much expressing a very healthy view of what toxic and healthy masculinity are.
But so with with that being said, you I know you're do you consider yourself a feminist? No.
Probably more so than not.
All right, so I'm gonna go here with it. So do you agree that there's toxic feminism?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So just like the same way that a toxic male tries to keep a man, a boy, or something from developing in his own way. Let's say develop to be gay or trans or whatever, right? And a toxic male would try to shut that down, right?
Correct.
So and you try to cultivate them the way they want that kid to be. So can we safely say that in toxic feminism that there's a repeat, or not a repeat, that there's definitely women that do the same thing and try to cultivate their kids into be gay or transsexual?
Man,
Why?
you just made me think about something.
Because I've seen it.
Okay,
firsthand.
So I haven't seen that. So I won't say no, never, because there's always the exception to the rule. You and I differ in the belief, though. I think that you're born gay. So I don't think that someone's actions are just going to force them to become gay. Like, I don't think there's anything, that your mother could have done to you as a child that you were going to suddenly be like, I would love to suck that cock right now.
I mean, I disagree, but I'm not going to say that you cannot be born gay, like just you're born and you just feel a certain type of way, and that's valid. I'll give that to anybody. If you feel a certain type of way, then there's no reason for me to question that you want to live a certain type of way, right? But at the same time, there are definitely things that happen throughout people's life that alter their mentality and that alter their perception and that push them towards, and that goes from everything. Let's say,
I would say it pushes them towards toxic behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that, I honestly just don't, I don't know what kind of extreme home life somebody would live in that an adult mother or father that
sexual
could
abuse.
change their sexual orientation.
Because over time,
here's the thing. I think that there's a whole bunch of bad stuff, sexual abuse or all of that stuff, that can most certainly affect people's thought processes and how they deal with stuff. All of those
and
things.
But
I don't think it changes.
I mean, absolutely.
Versus
because it was
gay versus straight.
But if
it happens, if there's some kind of home situation where that actually happens, it's abuse across the board. I could care less. Right. I could care. I don't care. That's abuse, and someone should be punished for that.
I feel like if you were getting a massage right now, she'd be needing you.
I would need you. Right. And I actually have a few people that will get me going just so they can get that treatment. Actually.
Okay. So if you were raised by two gay men, okay, mm-hmm. You're more likely going to grow up to be gay.
I don't believe that. No.
Because
not in any fathom. No.
I mean,
not at all.
They have plenty of studies that show that though. Because
no, they don't.
Yes, they do. But yes, they do.
Mm-mm.
And just like if you grew up in let's take the situation like who's the football player? They did the Netflix thing on Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take somebody like Aaron Hernandez. Okay, the football player that killed all those people and all that shit like that, and he was supposedly gay and whatever, and he was never sexually abused, but he
didn't feel comfortable coming out as gay because of toxicness.
Because of his dad. But besides that, his dad with the combination,
dad didn't make him gay. His dad made him fearful of being who he was.
Right.
That's
But listen. Not only did he grow up in a toxic thing, he had a gay experience by his best friend that had some type of abuse by his father. So therefore, he was He
Alright.
was cultivated, because if he never would have had the
that much of an
if he
experience.
never had
No.
that, if he never had that interaction, if he never had the gay, if his,
I have heard
if his
from
friend, hold on, let me just finish my thought. If his friend had never been molested and raped by his, never been molested by his dad,
Caused the question of sexuality.
caused him to question his sexuality, he never would have tried to have sexual interactions with Aaron Hernandez, right? And then that is the cultivation. Then the toxic traits that his dad pushed on him is what made him feel uncomfortable. Not that there's anything wrong with him becoming gay. That's not what I'm saying. I don't care. You can be gay, not be gay, straight, transsexual.
But it instilled.
I don't care.
fear,
But if you look at the process of it,
Okay.
well,
So
essentially, what
here's
I'm
the
hearing.
thing, though. Children of all upbringings sexually experiment. Period. Boys and boys, girls and girls, little girls and
there's a
little
whole lot of
boys.
research on that.
There's
Definitely.
a ton of research on it.
But
They touch each other. They experience. They two little boys in the kindergarten or first, second grade can kiss each other or touch each other, and then they will grow up and they will be heterosexual males. The difference is what kind of information they're being fed at home. If they have such toxicity and fear in their home that one little kiss or that one little touch most certainly made them gay forever, you're going to find a very messed up
but
male.
is that, but is,
I really have to say though, I agree with everything she's saying in this aspect, because like I want to, what you were saying about repressing, you know, their own development, which we all do, and that's part of society's, you know, our idea of masculinity. But in reality, there's so much masculinity that can still be embraced and exuded, even in someone who is homosexual. I do have some beliefs about that. It's really just out of the question, still indefinite. Like, there's a lot of psychological findings where there was an innate homosexual feeling. There was something going on there, but like neurological findings, on the other hand, point to completely opposite stuff. Like usually homosexuals have an incredibly masculinated mind, like thought process. It's more in alignment with the majority of male thinking or neurosynapses.
yeah, I agree with
But
that.
what you were saying earlier, about when you were talking about Aaron Hernandez's father, from that angle, you were saying, you know, repressing that is going to lead to the toxic behavior because of the fear instilled of being themselves, right? But what he said, though, his opinion also elaborated this. It came from somebody potentially, and I don't know. I'm not vouching for the other side. I do agree with everything pretty much that you say, but I get what you're saying, and my point being that toxicity could have potentially, if he's accurate, had that much of a reach. Like it could have spread.
And even if we go back to the children experiment, right? Okay, not saying that children haven't been experimenting for years, but even with that is still a cultivation, I believe, of society, of ourselves, what we do, because we have definitely, and this is, I mean, I'm sure we can all agree about this, that in society we have over-sexualized everything in life. So kids are.
Actually, I think we've under-sexualized
I think
it.
especially the children. When you have
If
when
you look
when
at-
when my five-year-old is born,
Semantics, really.
you know what I'm
If
saying?
you look at all the rest of the world, America's sexually repressed. We have more problem in all aspects of sexuality than all the rest of the world. All the rest of the world, you could go to the beach and you can watch a woman walk down topless, and guess what's going to happen to her? Nothing. In America, we still have to teach men you're not allowed to touch her just because she's topless. Or you're not allowed to approach her just because she's topless.
We're still not on India
We are
level.
so we
We're
are
still not
so repressed in all of the way we think about
But we
sexuality. We actually create it to be a toxic
that-
situation,
but that-
which makes us under-sexualized.
But that doesn't mean that we are not at all times constantly bombarding underage children with over-sexualized images,
Well, I think-
music.
I think we've
and
taken
all that stuff. I
we've
mean,
taken the perversion of sex and normal sex, and we've made
Yeah. So like, I mean,
we've added
well,
a lot
no,
of
we-
shame to
no,
sex that shouldn't be there.
we've turned them into
but I'm not saying, but
products,
that
and
has
we put
nothing to
them
do
on
with
different-
children, though. When you're talking about
No,
children, you're talking about
check
what
this out.
children see and what they look at and what they perceive and what they intake. When you over sexualize children and the content that they're seeing,
But check it out.
and you allow as a father or a mother to, and I'm guilty of it too. Look, I'm not saying I'm guilty of it too.
One example though, what's
I
one
give it-
example?
Movies. I
just wanna
mean,
get what-
tons of
get what
movies. I
you're
mean,
saying.
movies
We
and
turn it into a
music.
product. Sex sells.
Sex.
So it's at a certain level that still isn't even honest or genuine. It's in kids' faces for that reason. And I agree with what you're saying though. Like there is a certain detachment from healthy, mindful sex and things like that Americans have because we have turned sex into this product and we relate to it on a level that isn't even personal.
We also shame it. Like
We do
we've
that.
connected it to a Bible or a moral system, or you do it this way, so it's wrong because it's different than how I perceive it should be done.
I think that's becoming antiquated though. I really do see like there's a lot more sexuality that's being practiced that I know, you know.
Sex wouldn't sell so much if we didn't make it such
Yeah,
a big deal.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not.
But
personal anymore.
but it still goes back to we're kind of losing focus here. But it still goes back to we're talking about the cultivation of certain traits and stuff like that. And I still feel like that whenever a society is perpetually bombarding children with sexuality, and it's not, and I'm not saying that it's and it's more along even the parents, you know what I'm saying, they allow their children to watch this certain type of content, right? So it is definitely, if you're letting your kids watch sexually explicit shit or listen to sexually explicit music, they are probably going to be a little more sexual active or at a younger age than somebody else, and they're going to be more curious into doing things. And I would say that if you're, and I would say that somebody that doesn't get that content, that doesn't have that content all the way bombarded on them, is more likely to not have these thoughts of wanting to have all these sexual acts and stuff like this, or thinking it's normal for a 12-year-old to have sex. You know what I'm saying? But if you're letting your daughter listen to Cardi B, and hey, I let my daughter listen to Cardi B. I'm not the best parent in the world. But if you're letting your kid listen to Cardi B at 6 or 7 years old and thinking it's cute,
yeah,
that she's twerking with her older with some grown-ups on video, and you're putting it all online, I'm sorry, but I feel like you're over-sexualizing children.
Well, there's an issue with that.
I think it's not so much over-sexualizing; it's just bad parenting. Like
yeah,
it's just
But
like
Well,
your
it's-
child's not your friend, and it's your job to make boundaries. Like, okay, it's the same conversation you would have about video game violence.
Yeah.
It's the same conversation that you would have about bad eating habits. It's the same conversation that you would have about anything, really. Alcohol. Most of the world drinking age is 18, but besides that drinking age 18, it is very, very common for you to see a family sit down and eat a meal, and some of the younger kids have a glass of wine. And the difference is when they hit 17, 18, 19, 20, they're not doing this like alcohol poisoning, keg stand partying, because it's just integrated into normal life. It's not secretive, it's not special, it's not something that they have to hide and sneak away to do. So they have a beer.
It has a different purpose.
It has a different purpose. And I feel the same way about sexuality. Yes, there's Cardi B twerking, and if you think your 6-year-old sitting there twerking is cute, yes, it's sexual, but that's not sexual. That's just not how you teach your child to behave.
But
It's something that's very different
but it's still sexual. I mean, it's still sexual. That is.
When
Still
I see a
sexual.
6-year-old twerking, I don't at first think sexual.
Hey,
Though. I just think like, why would you want your kid?
Just to kind of point to something that supports what you're saying and kind of dial this back to healthy masculinity, there is some recent research, it's not very recent, but they've shown that a lot of younger men are reporting erectile dysfunction. And when they start asking the basic questions, a lot of these dudes experience it when they're just trying to have sex with their significant other, with their women, but they don't experience ED when they masturbate to porn frequently, and it's not necessarily the frequent masturbation, which is unhealthy and decreases testosterone. It is they're finding their detachment to natural
to
healthy
because
sex.
it's normal because normal sex isn't porn sex. I
This
mean,
kid,
you know what I mean?
exactly. This is why some girl who's getting paid to be treated like an animal, essentially, is his girlfriend's not giving him that.
I'm not saying people can't have porn sex. All I'm saying is that every day people don't have porn sex every day.
I'm just saying that I went and talked to my stepmother and now I'm homeless. I don't know.
Now I'm homeless.
The thing is,
Don't try this at home.
the thing is though, that it's not also just the perversion of it that they're taking in, it's the detachment to the reality of it. This woman's on a screen, and that's actually something that's become more attractive. And it does, like, we have a sexually marketed country. I wouldn't say it's over sexual though, because we do have a sexually repressed society. But sex is all in our faces, but our misinterpretation of it. It's kids are picking up on this. Sex is this. We need to be perverts, or we need to be, they get this wrong idea, and they don't have healthy sex at home. Our country isn't, we don't have the nude beaches flourishing. We don't have too many.
We don't have healthy sex
Education.
period, and it's a problem. But I just really don't think it's just one thing. That's where it comes down to all the way across the board. The person that's watching so much porn that real life interaction isn't fulfilling to them, they didn't just start watching all that porn just to start watching all that porn. There was some other aspect that they were missing in their life prior to that screen.
Yeah, it's called sex.
No, it's not just
That's why we
sex.
started watching
It's not
porn.
just sex though, but that's what I'm saying. I think that I agree. Like I
I feel
can
like
see
it's-
where you could cross that line, where you watch so much porn that then
The
things
thing,
get twisted, but something happened
Well,
before you started
I always
watching
want to
that
point to
much.
this. When people are having situations like that, and a lot of the problem that America has is we no longer have a lot of healthy relationships. We don't have the village there in our
There's
development.
no village, and we need a village.
We have all these people, and they live in these places, but there really isn't anyone developing a healthy relationship, so that that communication's there, the emotional attachment on different levels is there. So all we know is friends, family, and people we fuck. That's kind of the issue. We don't really.
And hopefully we keep them all separate.
Yeah. Yeah, but I definitely agree with a lot of what both you guys are saying. It's not really my whole take on this, just to kind of paraphrase for what I could spew off on for another 30 minutes, but it's not nature versus nurture, it's just simply nurturing nature. And
Everything in moderation.
we don't do that anymore. We've put everything polar opposite.
I agree with both of y'all to a point. I mean, I do think that it's always a combination, right? It's never just one or the other. It's always a combination.
Oh, it's
Right.
gonna
I
be
agree.
all kinds
I
of-
definitely agree with that, but I still stand firm in that there is still cultivation involved in
It's
it.
okay. It's not
there
the
can
first
be.
time you've been wrong.
I mean, I'm always right.
Well, here's the thing though. Is there can be, and there also
You just can't make me tap out right now.
you can't be proven wrong, and you can't be proven right.
Yeah, no, we're
Oh.
okay.
But that's definitely something that people should be conscious of, because you can't be proven wrong. You know what I mean? So people do have to not necessarily be fearful, which I feel ashamed to live in a place where people honestly say all the time to me that they're fearful for their children's livelihood and for them to not be sexually abused or something like that. And it's just in everybody's face nonstop.
I do have a message for your toxic men, though. I have 4 daughters, and I have taught every single one of them, including their girlfriends and every other girl and every other parent that I can teach this to, stop letting rapists walk away. We're going to start teaching the women to kill their attackers, and we're going to sit through self-defense trials instead of rape trials. That's just for anybody who might need to hear
I
that
agree with that.
information.
I'm game with that.
I'm
Hey.
game with that.
Yeah.
I know some pretty healthy fathers that have actually, like, I know a whole bunch of sisters that are running around strapped up. To death and they
Yes,
know how to
fathers. Instead of worrying about putting the gun in your son's hand, which go ahead, do that. Put the gun in your daughter's hand.
Oh,
Make
yeah.
sure she knows how to shoot
Yeah,
it.
my daughter
Take
already
her to
knows.
the range, and not just guns. I would suggest knives, tasers, mace. If your daughter is comfortable with these things in her hand and how to use them, when it's time to use them, she will.
I know a chick that her and her dad can't go to too many ranges here locally because they're not long enough for what they shoot at.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and her father's been having her.
As a general rule, women are better shots. overall nationally, if you go look up stats, women are better shot.
Looking at the
Why don't they have as many women snipers?
Job repression.
Job repression.
looking at some neurological findings on focus, men kind of
Because they have to deal with a lot of
Toxic
men
assholes in the
to
army.
get through to there.
I
At the
kinda
end of the
agree.
day.
Or is it valid to say
I mean,
that maybe because men have more physical
hold on.
abilities than women naturally,
No, yeah.
because so we can therefore crawl for miles and miles and miles in the bush.
Here's
It's not
the thing.
necessarily. I mean, we can say that might be a part of it, but when a sniper goes into war, him and one other person are gone for days and weeks or whatever, and they're crawling through sand dunes and they're gone. I mean, they're gone forever.
That's the truth.
I'm not saying women can't do it, but we are genetically built to withstand more than y'all.
That I hate to say it, that's the truth of it. That's definitely.
Y'all's vaginas are more genetically built to stand more damage than us.
Oh God.
But our physical bodies, I said it, I'm sorry, I went toxic.
Who was it who said the thing about like it's not? They always call boys that are weak a pussy, but they shouldn't do that.
They shouldn't do that
That
because
was me.
pussies bounce back.
That's what I said. Remember I said that? I was like, you call girls.
It was one of the famous old ladies.
It's Betty White,
Betty White said it, yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but no, I definitely like everything you guys are saying is definitely in scope. But one thing we want to look at focus from like what they find when it comes to a man paying attention to a task, just neurosynapse, just the signals in the brain, the way they're emitted are kind of scattered all over the place, and we kind of develop a one-pointed focus. A guy goes in, I was telling him this, he goes in to cook something in the kitchen, and kids stay the hell out. I got to have all this stuff ready here, and this is what I'm doing.
Women
And
are multitaskers.
and if
I agree with that.
if they go to do
Some-
something
not all
else, they
women, though.
forget that. Yeah, women have the kids running around. They're on the phone scheduling something with the school. They're cooking. They're just going to finish their work.
I still think that goes back to cultivation.
Here's
Because
the thing,
Oh.
everybody
But when
has their skill sets. And the idea would be to find somebody that has the opposite skill sets.
Well, that's why
It
I say-
doesn't really need to be the male skill or the female skill. If you're a better cook, you should cook and I'll go mow the yard.
I always have
you
to
know,
cook that
like,
way. No,
it's-
you can cook because I'm not cooking all the time. I'm not you cook.
I'm just saying, but when it
That's
comes,
my struggle.
When it comes down to stuff like that, I actually prefer, I will volunteer to mow the yard before I volunteer to wash the clothes or the dishes.
Yeah, I get
Like, there's certain things.
Well, what
But
else-
it
what
should
did
just
you-
be based on whatever you're good at.
Well-
Like, find somebody that compliments you and don't worry about who belongs to where.
Yeah, I agree with that. But pointing back to when you were talking about women being better shot, though, the idea that they could focus on like, all right, lining this up, some stuff going over here doesn't completely distract me. It would probably be better for them to just make a quick shot real fast without losing focus or without being oversensitive to one aspect of it. You know.
We have different sight too, like the way
That's true. That is
there's
true
different cone things going on. There's
That's
a
true.
bunch of different elements that go along with it, but yeah,
I can see that also. Smaller
small,
hands.
maybe.
You got little hands. Look. Apparently almost the size of mine.
Those are pretty small hands because I got really super tiny hands.
Yeah, look, big hands. All right.
Yeah,
You
I
start
have
feeling emasculated around here.
pretty large hands. So yeah, I feel like that we kind of covered some. I really agree with everything both of you guys were just saying, but it's just that there's so many variables. Nothing's really definite in any of the findings as far as like development goes in our youth. That's why all our kids, are unique. I hate to say it, there is a lot of stuff that I agree with that we could be doing differently as a society, but I mean. So one generation comes up anew, it's their turn to make kids. They don't really spend their lives researching and raising a child, and we don't have that
I
community.
freestyled the whole way. I don't know how I figured this shit out. I got 3 great kids. I don't know what the fuck happened. But I effed up a lot, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't know what. I just stumbled through it somehow. I was able to figure it
Yeah,
out.
lucky. Yeah.
So I think some people, like I said, going back to cultivation, I think some people are just, cultivated differently. It's how you raise. Like some people, well, I mean, for the most part, sometimes you turn against the opposite of what you're raised.
Mm-hmm.
But I think more times than none, you are a product of what you're raised. So if you're raised, if you are raised by parents that let you run amok,
You're gonna run amok.
you're gonna
most
let
likely.
your kids. You're gonna run amok, and then you're gonna let your kids run amok. Probably most.
Oh,
of
yeah,
the time, you know what I mean?
Or
Yeah.
you'll do the very opposite.
I mean,
And not let them run amok at all. But there just goes back to more variables because at the end of the day, you're still an individual person. So you can always find somebody who grows up in this circumstance and does the exact opposite or takes a different path completely because them as a person wasn't going to be changed or molded. They are who they are, and they've just made themselves that way. Those are usually nice, strong people. And then you see exactly what you're saying. Yes, your chances are going to follow some. Man, I'll be yelling at my kids and I hear my bitch ass mother's voice coming out of my voice, and it's really irritating because it's some of the stuff that used to make me mad when I was a kid. Like, she was a horrible, mean person, you know? And then every once in a while I'm like, damn, I'm a horrible, mean person too. But I've come to the conclusion I'm a horrible, mean person because I care.
Yeah. I mean,
and they'll thank me for it later.
I can relate to that because I'll catch myself too. Like, I have a great relationship with my dad is like an alpha male, right? He's one of those alpha male guys. So, you know, growing up, he was, you know, he fucked with me, joking, lovingly. But as a kid, sometimes you misinterpret things, right? And especially primarily being raised by my mom, like the same situation with your son, you tend to be more sensitive towards things. Yeah. So it took a long time for me to realize that it was all just dad being dad, fucking with me. But especially with my youngest son, because he was raised more with his mom than me up until this point, I started to catch myself, in a sense, picking on him kind of hard, and then I realized, like, I was like, oh, I kind of sound like my dad.
I think all we can hope is that
let me chill out. Let me lay off him a little bit. I'm being a little bit of an asshole.
All you can hope is to remember things that made you feel good or bad when you were a kid, and then adjust accordingly. Every once in a while, I'll look at one of my daughters, and you see her. They go through different, you know, when they're 12 or 13, they get a little chubby on you. And my first instinct was like, oh, please no. But at the same time, I made sure I bit my lip because I remember exactly how it felt
I have to do it with
to
my
hear
daughter.
my mom tell me that I, you know, was too big or, you know, you just got to just shut up and you got to let them work it out because you know that you're going to leave bad impressions in places you don't want to